Hello again. Welcome back for another episode of The Worksome Gym.
I'm Diane.
You know how we like to do a little house cleaning before we get into today's topic, which is a topic that we kind of went into a couple of weeks ago, but we're really going to go, as they say in the corporate world, deep dive or unpack.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we like to do a little catch up before we start. That's with a C, not a K. We picked up a whole bunch of new listeners in several states, as well as countries like Denmark, Ethiopia, which of course reminds me of that bit where Ethiopia, send trucks.
Yeah, because you live in a desert.
Yeah.
Well, Denmark, I guess I should say hi to Heidi and Morton and the kids.
Well, there you go. That's how we got Denmark. But here in the States, Landisville, Pennsylvania, population 1,800, just outside of Lancaster, or Lancaster.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what your regional...
California, it's Lancaster. And then Ohio is Lancaster.
No, it's Lancaster in Ohio. See, that again, it just depends on who you talk to. Hollywood, Florida, famous for being in Broward County, the whole hanging Chad crap.
Oh, yeah.
They also, I didn't know, have where Invitica Watches, the company is, where they make, their famous timepieces and writing instruments, which you have a fun story about.
In Ohio, in Columbus, there was a store. There was a big sign. It said pen inspections, and I just thought that was comical. Would you go in with a pen and they say, "Yep, that's a pen."
That's a pen. Oh, it's official. It's like POW parking when you go to some of these places. And again, I don't want this to come across the wrong way. It's like, if they are prisoners of war, why would they need a special parking place? They're not here to see the thing that you're seeing. But, maybe I'm just being too literal. Right? Okay. Boy, she didn't like that one.
No, I just never saw POW parking.
Really?
Yeah.
A lot of, it's, yeah, I won't get into it. But yeah, a lot of places have special up close, like handicap and expectant mothers, which is...
Oh, veteran parking.
No,
okay.
It's called POW parking. I kid you not. I will... That'll be on my list of things that I'll forget tomorrow, but I'll remember that eventually, but I'll write that down or someone can keep me honest. Ashburn, Virginia, thank you. Population 50,000, and they're famous for... And this is the reason I'm bringing this up. I think maybe there is a connection. We've talked about data centers a lot, and guess what they have in Ashburn, Virginia? Lots of data centers.
Oh, wow.
So I'm trying to, because earlier, well, you'll see the connection. We talked about this recently, how I think Google is, it's not a search engine, but more tries to plagiarize your great ideas.
Yeah.
Henderson, Nevada, or Nevada. It's Nevada.
Nevada.
Famous for...
That's a throw out to Veep.
Yeah. Famous for the Ethel M. Chocolate Company, established by Forrest Mars,
Mars bars. Yeah.
Well, that
Mars,
side of it, right? Not
Mars.
Yes, there you go. Pembroke, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Quaint little 20,000 population village. They just had their 50th annual Grand Old Fish Fry. That sounds like fun. First week of May, always.
Huh.
And they just had their 50th.
That reminds me of a joke my grandmother used to tell me, and she loved telling this around her little bitty friends, that, every year they like to go to Boston to get scrod, and the other little old lady says, "Oh, I never heard it in the past tense."
I don't get it.
Instead of getting screwed, fornication, scrod, she goes to Boston to get scrod.
Okay.
I never heard it in the past tense.
Yeah, I guess someone looked that up. But
yeah, I guess that's not usually a joke grandmas tell, but
well, anymore.
My family's a little different.
Well, no, remember there was, she had her 15 minutes of fame. Isn't there a YouTuber that she was a cook, but she swore. I mean, that was her thing. She just
had the granny, yeah.
Just had the filthiest mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, but I mean, one note doesn't last long. I mean,
right.
Well, you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I hate to keep these, or I hate to make our discussions, time bound, but go Canes.
Yes.
Wow.
Let's go Hurricanes.
They swept the first two
Canes.
rounds of the playoffs and only lost one game against the
Canadians.
Historic, let's face it, one of the last few, one of the original hockey teams in the NHL.
Well, we couldn't beat them during regular season play.
No,
we lost every
game. And it didn't start out. Game one was horrendous for the Canes.
It was awful.
But I would blame the fact that because the Canes had swept Series 1, Series 2, they had like almost 10 days off between the last game and the first game in that third series.
Right.
And the longest gap between their last appearance in the Stanley Cup was 2008, 7 or 8 or 9, somewhere in that, right? But it's 20 years. So I guess that would be 7. Who knows? Maybe it wasn't 20, but the longest span since their last visit to
the Stanley Cup.
So playing, and I had no idea. And again, I don't want to sound like a fair weather fan, but the Las Vegas Knights, when the hell did they?
They just came up. They were an expansion team.
When?
My brother was saying that it was just like in the last couple of years, and that they came out like gangbusters.
They obviously
their coach used to be the Blue Jackets coach, something like that. I don't know. I'm not a hockey. Go sports.
Yeah, but yeah, go Canes. That is Stanley Cup starts Monday night, and I'm counting the days until she turns 45, which really doesn't mean much, but Brittany will be in our demo.
Okay.
Demographic. Remember, where I talked about that recently. Hard to believe when
it's not creepy anymore.
Exactly. It's not when she started at 18 or whatever. But so today's topic,
yes,
I wanted to get into, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, where I think Google steals great ideas, and maybe in a good way, I guess, brought. I've reached out to University of Arizona State, or Arizona State University, excuse me. I know how sometimes they're sensitive about getting in the right order. But we had an episode called Cannonball, which was more of a thing. I did that because I thought of,
Ron Burgundy.
That and Bill Murray and jumping in the pool. But in that episode, we specifically, I went off on a rant how we got the food pyramid wrong.
Right. And then you and Jess said, what if we, the whole calorie thing is wrong?
Well, believe it or not, and I mean, I don't know if that I teed this up or, well, I'm not saying I did, but so the folks at Arizona State University, which I've reached out to see if I can't get folks from that study that was just published, are talking about how the calorie system, they shed light on a system that still, to my point, maybe we need to rethink the concept of how we count energy that the body uses and to determine what is the right, I guess, number.
What we should and shouldn't eat, the limits, the guardrails of good nutrition.
Right. So don't be surprised if we call this episode something like a SouthParky sort of, it's more about the poop, not what you eat sort of thing. I'm not sure.
It's the Spice Melange.
Yes, because what the folks at Arizona State University have pointed out that notwithstanding the caloric intake, but on a controlled diet, that even on a controlled diet with normal, healthy people in this group, certain people performed better when it came to either maintaining a weight, gaining weight, losing weight, all based on the fact that they have these microbes in their system, which has an effect on how the calories are absorbed into our system.
Right. It could be either a help or a hindrance, depending on what's in your gut.
Right. So their study just released talks about how microbes, which live in all of us, and how the calories that we intake, how those calories are either consumed by the microbes, microorganisms, the spice, and how they have an effect on us humans, what we what we eat. And so I did a little history. So this goes back to, like I said, maybe we need to rethink the whole caloric rules. What is it, 2,000 a day?
Or 1,800 a day. And there's depending if you're male or female or
right. Now, and so I also kind of pointed out, and I was a little off. I said early 1800s, but from 1850 to 1897, when they finally published their study, they had over those 40 years, a bunch of scientists got together and this is great. Their project statement, to me, this was absolutely wonderful how they defined what they were going to do, because I don't think we have this in today's world. Their project statement was, we need to have a way to translate the human energy requirements into a recommended set of intake of food and assess how that overall food supply and different populations, so what those requirements have or need for an individual's food supply.
Well,
so
that
your
makes sense, because
right.
you need to help populations thrive, and it's part of planning. Yeah.
So their mission statement was assess how the available food in our supplies, and that of course certainly was an issue in the 1800s, because we didn't, the ice box.
Right.
When did they? We didn't have home refrigeration until the
things weren't necessarily shelf stable. So yeah,
so
you had to do a lot of planning.
So a system that we've been using, and again, I'm not knocking. It's always version 1 of something is wonderful. So the Atwater system, which has assigned basically numbers to the food components, and basically what they adopted, a very simple set of calculations around 1 gram of fat, or 1 gram of fat is 9 calories, 1 gram of a carb is 4, and 1 gram of a protein is 4 calories.
Okay.
So in essence, that's, what they had come up with. And so I made a slight ADHD pause for a minute, because to think about how would somebody in the corporate world or government today come up with that mission? So it's like when Kennedy said, we want to go to the moon, we want to land on the moon and successfully return somebody to Earth, right? Or thereabouts, very succinct. But with today's corporate speak, it'd be something like, unpack human energy, daily, tangible, scalable, and agile requirements into an efficient set of data-driven constraints. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I came up with that, and I said, what does that mean? But
yeah,
that sounds good.
It does. You could put that on a poster.
Data-driven. But anyway, so how did they come up with this caloric system? And again, I'm not trying to pick it apart, but one of the things that people and scientists and nutritionists have still to this day complained about, not complained, but have pointed out, is a calorie is a form of energy.
Mm-hmm.
But the scientific standard for how you measure a unit of energy is what? It's a joule.
Right.
It's not a calorie, it's a joule.
And it's to do 1 gram of water, 1 degree, something like that.
Exactly. It's actually quite simple.
The energy used.
It's a Newton. And Newton's involved in that formula somehow, right? It's in order to move something that 1 unit, how many of these units does it take?
Right.
Something to that effect. But so, for example, we decided to come up with, or they decided that they, instead of using joules, which they could do,
mm-hmm.
but they went with calories. I'm not exactly sure why. So with that in mind, 1 joule is worth 0.239 calories.
Okay.
In this system.
And then in our system, it's a kilocalorie, right?
Yes. And so back to what the Atwater formula was. So there are, actually, it's funny you bring that up. So 17 kilojoules equal 1 calorie, which is 4 units in this particular case, right? And they looked at it again, and what does this boil down to what you were talking about? It's all based around heat generated from something, right? That's the measure of the energy. And so what we know today is the 4 grams of protein, or 4 calories per gram of protein, 9 for fat, 4 for carbs, and they actually did alcohol too.
Okay.
7. So 7's the number that went into that. And so you take what this process, if you will, and the information that Arizona University put together about how individually, let's face it, we have things in our bodies that either help promote the idea of energy absorption.
Mm-hmm.
It's metabolic energy versus net metabolic energy. Is I guess this is where the real scientific minds have discourse between them, because as the food passes from the mouth through the rest of the body and out, and that's why the whole, feces transplant joke came about. But that notion of it's the same for all of us.
And they labeled it all just a calorie, whether the type of food, whether it's a fat, a carb, or whatever, in whatever biome you have, that a calorie in is a calorie out, and that's what you're saying. It's not the same.
It's not. Well, that and
they can't all be labeled generically.
That's exactly what Arizona State University just published, is that it's not only different for humans, but let's face it, it's twofold, and this is what makes it really even more interesting. And really, I hate to use the word deep dive, but there's a lot to talk
about.
A lot to unpack. The idea of the process. So each human, everybody has a different metabolic rate, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of us run, and maybe this is that direct correlation. If it's what we're generating in our bodies, part of it is the food goes in the stomach. That's where, again, it gets broken down so it can molecularly get combined, can form energy, right?
And we think it all happens there.
Well, and exactly, and this is not like accounting. Our bodies aren't run like, first in, first out sort of thing. You either use it or lose it. Part of this whole thing is that energy in your body, caloric intake, is used to maintain everything that we do. Us talking, thinking, breathing, circulatory system, all that aside, and the energy that it takes to actually break this stuff down,
right,
are other components that the University of Arizona, Arizona State University, pointed out that you need to consider. Then the interesting twist was, what about the diet? So you add what is a Western diet into this, which a Western diet, of course, has more fat, more protein, and not as much fiber. Because that's the only thing that's changed about Atwater over the 150 odd years that it's been, 200 years that it's been around, is that finally in the 70s, they decided that, well, what about fiber?
Oh.
So fiber has an effect. And of course, here, another ADHD moment, I also thought to myself, remember those Olestra things when Olestra was discovered to kind of pass right through you so that you didn't have time to absorb the calories?
With the anal leaking.
Well, right. So that concept of let's trick the system out. Well,
to flush it through, to not absorb anything.
Yeah, literally. You're going to enjoy it, and it's coming right back. You might as well just sit on the chitter and eat your Olestra chips. But and let's face it, it's the same sort of concept of what, gastro bypass and some of these other physical mechanisms to keep the nutrition away from staying in the system to be absorbed, because if it's not used, it has to go somewhere.
Right.
And where does it get stored? It's stored as glucose, which of course we all associate that with, diabetes. And
right.
And the interesting thing though is that at any given moment, at any time during, even if you're fasting, your glucose, there's a
it fluctuates, right?
There is an average, though. There is and that's why they've gone to different testing than this, if you're diabetic, having to prick your finger every couple of minutes, which never understood the concept. What are you going to do if it's a different number? You're going to call the doctor?
You can't eat less.
You can't take it. You purge what you just put in. But so the idea of having fiber come into the equation, this Atwater thing, kind of made a difference, and that's where Weight Watchers and a lot of these folks. So
if you have a carb, you need to have fiber in it to help.
If you had fiber, you could take a carb away, which of course carb was,
bad.
was the bad thing, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at the way the body burns things, and why is it that you get more energy from fat than you do protein and carbs?
Because it takes a while it lasts longer. It makes you feel full longer.
Well, but it's
harder to break down, right?
Based on the scientific, you're keeping that flame going, or however. There's a scientific thing that they used. I can go into. I'll stick it on the website. That helps create that energy, that flame. That what in our body is certainly we don't use the flame, but it's creating heat. Heat is the energy that comes from food,
right?
And so fat has more calories to it because let's face it, it's what do you do?
But it keeps it regulated.
What do the Eskimos burn? They burn blubber.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like a candle, if you will.
Right.
Versus the meat, which you don't want to burn that, but it certainly, again,
it'll give you a flame, but it won't last very long.
Exactly. So you introduce fiber into this, and that again, from a standard. It was a very simple and still is a very simple guide of, hey, here's what you need in a day, or here's what calories that thing has. What was it? You and I had always talked about this. To maintain a certain weight, if you take, depending on your level of activity, you take 11 to 17 and you multiply that by your weight, and that's how many calories it takes to maintain that weight, supposedly. And again, thereabouts.
Yeah, we always used 15.
Sure, that more active, or again, whatever that number came about. But when it comes to how our diet has had such an effect on the way our systems get energy from the food, or too much energy in this case, and store it as glucose, which gets stored in your body, but also, of course, is that thing that can make those that are resistant or intolerant to glucose be an issue. So we're taking all these approaches to either be healthy. What's our daughter's joke? She calls everybody Amerifats, right? And there's, of course, with this revolution of GLP 1, 3, whatever they're called, all these, we all want to take something magically and become, something that we're not. I mean, how many people are truly happy with their weight? And to have all these years, you busted your ass to count the calories, but not stop to realize that, I'm not saying it didn't help or doesn't make sense, but it
should matter what you're eating,
it should,
not just the calorie.
You can't look at that simple formula and say to yourself that you're doing something bad, like taking the extra bite of something that tastes the same as the first bite, right?
Right.
To have another bite of something with more calories, and worry so much about the components of that food.
Right. It's like if you have 1,000 calories worth of cake versus 1,000 calories of a protein and a veg and something with.
What would you rather have? Ding ding chocolate would be my answer.
But you're still not going to feel full, and it's not gonna energize you for the day. It doesn't fuel your body. It's still calories.
See, and this is where I think there still needs to be. We need to take a more analytical approach to the idea of what we're putting into our bodies and what we're able to use now versus store, versus if we have too much stored, how do we get rid of that in an efficient way? Not this shortcut crap where,
right.
Go into ketosis so that your body's burning this better than that. None of that makes any sense when we all have these microorganisms inside of us
that help you,
that are either helping you get more and this is part of that study that the folks at Arizona State University concluded, is that if you look at diet as part of this, our Western diet is higher in fat and protein, no question, right? We complain about that in just the types of foods that we have. But what's interesting, though, is that diet is also metabolically more absorbable, convertible into energy than any other sort of diet. So, not the Western bad diet, right? Fast food, grease, carbs.
Oh, processed foods, yeah.
Processed foods, right?
Bad.
Whereas if you look at non-processed foods or
the Mediterranean style,
those calories don't get absorbed to begin with as effectively or as efficiently. So, can one take this also approach, or also, the opposite thinking? Hey, we've engineered food to a certain degree that we don't need as much. The problem is it tastes too freaking good,
right,
and you want more. But the reality is that we have made food more efficient than, if you think about it.
Right.
We're able to,
upload.
Again, whose fault is it that we're all fat? I'm not saying it has nothing to do with willpower. There's different than being 600 pounds, and literally, having a pre-Whopper dinner, or
pre-dinner Whopper.
Pre-dinner Whopper. A little dyslexic, but the notion of it all being back on the choices that we make. We can't choose what microorganisms live inside of us, like the SouthPark episode, get a fecal transplant.
From Tom Brady.
The
Spice.
And so, I mean, that's where it's not just troubling, I guess. It's not to say, again, not to make us, natural tendency is, hey, let's be a victim. It's not our fault. That's nothing to do with it, right? We all make those choices to not be 600 pounds because food tastes great, right? But again, I know part of it too, and you and I've had this discussion about, it's not just the idea of what you're putting in your mouth and thinking about it, but it's the things inside of your brain that help you make that or not help you make the right decisions or the good decisions. And I guess my point in all of this is, if you're up against the bad microbiome that's in your intestines,
how do we correct it then?
That are fat and happy and don't want to absorb any energy, or they're super thrilled, in this case, absorbing all the energy.
Yeah, because they're very good.
They're very good at what they're doing. And unfortunately, it's way more than we need.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you solve that problem? Is it the fact that, you look at the history of how we've tried to solve problems through medications, and back in the fen days, right, where people were losing enormous amounts of weight with just taking a simple pill. And now we've got the magic bullet with this
GLP-1s.
Which, again, no long-term studies. To me, it's dangerous, this notion of giving us something that, in this case, truly short-circuits the digestive process. It makes things go through you quicker.
Right. So you end up malnourished when you should be eating better things. But if you were eating better things, you probably wouldn't need the GLP-1. So when you take these, you have to exercise because it depletes your muscle mass. So you need to work out, and you need to be more mindful of what you eat because your body needs the nutrients. Now, if you're already exercising and eating properly, again, you probably wouldn't need the GLP-1. So the ones that it's targeted to, they're not necessarily going to be the people that want to do the work to be healthy. And that's why you have so many of them looking so emaciated and haggard, because they're still not choosing to eat
their microbiome
correctly.
Right. What little is in their system that is being absorbed as energy, to your point, they get that, what do they call it, the Ozempic face?
Yeah.
Whereas
the gaunt.
They look malnourished because, again, the stuff that's coming in that's keeping you look,
because you're flushing everything out.
Everything's going in and out as quick as it can. So, and if that's, so you're creating a series of, malnutrition, much, again, whether it's, bypassing part of your intestines, cutting out that, or
the gastric sleeve, or
cutting half of your stomach, and of course what we've realized is that it's the stomach stretches.
Yeah.
No one thought it. Again, it's we take these one
shot
attempts at curing the problem, but and my point still is that look at the way our diet, again, the Western, let's pretend for a minute, instead of so you have your burger, your fries, but you have a salad instead. Would that make a difference for those that are truly having, hyped up absorption of nutrition from all the food that they eat. How much little food? This goes, I guess my point is all these other ideas of, intermittent fasting, and all the medications that turn this in your brain to think, differently about food. Does it really matter? You're screwed because you've got the chemistry already built into you.
Right.
And why are we not looking at that more? Why are we not looking at how to fix or change or alter the
absorption of...
to your point, you add fiber, certainly, because, again, the beauty there with the fiber is it takes a lot to break down, and you don't get a lot of energy out of fiber. Right? So makes you feel full if that's the issue, right? There's feeling sensated, right? The sensation of feeling full, and that's when you stop eating, or you just stop eating because your plate's empty. It's just a different mentality behind the food, and I said it just
and like you said, with the different gut bacteria, and everybody being wired differently and having different gut, the way that you eat and the way that I eat, we've been told that carbs are bad. However, if I have a meal that's just protein and veg, my stomach gets upset. It needs the carbs to help absorb some of that stomach acid,
well,
and that's what I need.
And maybe,
but that might not be what somebody else needs.
Well, no, and that's a valid point. And I also look again. Let's not. I'm not blaming the diet, and I'm not saying I'm a victim of it. But another thing that's worth pointing out. I don't know if many people know this. I didn't realize this. Yeah, you pick it up from time to time from a documentary here, there, or the other. But you go to Outback and you get Flo's filet, and you try to buy a filet at your local market, and even the Select, Choice, Prime, you buy the top of the line, and it's still not the same.
Mm-mm.
And what we realized, because we have a hot sauce business, that through and this again, this is government for you. Government has allocated the best of the best of the best that goes available where?
To restaurants
first. So this whole notion of we have these food deserts, grocery stores wouldn't carry it because it's too expensive.
Right.
And the best of the best of the best stuff of cuts of meat and poultry and
are
all
reserved.
That stuff. I can tell you honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that, and I wouldn't have believed it, but you can recreate, Morton and Chris Ruth steaks at home by going to one of these restaurant places. And I'm not talking wholesale clubs.
No.
I'm not talking Costco or
Restaurant Depot. But you have to have...
They're called different things everywhere.
Right.
But
you have to have a business license in order to do it. You can't just come in off the street.
No, and I'm not trying to promote necessarily that or say, hey, look, that's a bad business model. That's there. But my point again is that
why as Americans we can't get the best?
Right.
If we're willing to pay for it, why can't we? If I want to buy the best and I'm not a restaurant, I should be able to buy the best.
Okay, so let's make you take the same meal that you could buy or prepare that has the right proportions of protein and carbs and fiber, and I have that from the top of the line stuff I can get at my grocery store, even the top of the top, Wegmans and versus if I have access to a restaurant version of that, I'd say it's always tasting better. And I guess my point there is part of eating is the enjoyment of the food.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have that, what really tastes good to me is the cheap shit like McDonald's and fast food.
Right.
Because there you're not actually getting a lot of protein in your burger because as we've learned that's a lot of cow.
Yeah.
That cow is eating a lot of corn rather, and so you're getting a lot of you're getting a lot of corn. But they make it taste great.
Right.
Through chemicals. We saw that, right? Where they put the charbroil taste
seasoning in it and a lot of sugar, a lot of salt, a lot of everything. So you can't afford the stuff that actually tastes good, so we substitute cheaper, lesser things and more of it.
And well, it to your point, it's cheaper.
Yeah.
And sadly, a head of lettuce is what, $3 now. It's insane what's going on. But so yeah, yes, you need a system to count things, and I think the Atwater calorie system certainly makes a sense. I only poke holes in it from a couple of perspectives because, let's face it, we haven't revisited that idea.
Right.
What made me think of this is the fact that we had that, revelation from Kennedy earlier this year that our food pyramid was upside
down. Yeah.
And so looking at what Atwater did from a scientific perspective is great. And it's a very simple, and they did exactly what they sought out to do, is to have a way to quantify food for your area, for an individual, and what nutritional requirements are. That's what you see on the side of a box, right? That information's there. However, holes that we should talk about, or we need to retool this process, is it's not in a scientific standard energy unit.
Right.
One. And two, we don't have, as Arizona University pointed out, we don't have any sort of factor, let's call it a weight or denominator, to say, hey, look, based on the way this person eats and digests and analyze the thing that comes out, unfortunately, they might be subjected to the fact that what they eat might have 2 times as many calories because they're so good at absorbing all the nutrients in that food. And that's no fault of anyone's,
right?
Other than what's inside you. And so that number needs to be tailored.
And you had mentioned earlier, not in this podcast, that certain things get absorbed in the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestines,
at different rates.
So even though it's the same, same calorie, one that doesn't get digested until it's further in the tract, you're expending calories to help move that along, right? Okay. So it's started out at 4 calories, but by the time it gets all the way through, you've already expended 3 of it just to try and pass it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they didn't take into account of where these calories, depending on the type of gram that is, whether it's fat or protein or carb, where it gets digested and the amount of time it spends in your system.
So, yeah, most of again, and another part of this is how then to tap into the glucose that your body stores, right? The glycogen. And it's all stored in basically one spot, the liver. And of course, the way that whole process works in drawing back stores of energy that you didn't use today when you ate your 2,000 calories, right? Because you sat around, But then tomorrow, you're going to expel technically twice as many, but for some reason, you're still gaining weight. It's this losing battle with what your system is allowing or absorbing too much of and good and efficient at storing, I guess.
Or my joke is, conserving for harsh winter.
Yeah.
That if you starve your body too much, any calorie is going to hold on to because you're in starvation mode. Your metabolism is going to slow down.
Yeah. So one of the, and we were talking about in the 70s, they then added fiber. They analyzed and they realized that even though Atwater was great with alcohol, carbs, protein, and fats, they didn't take into consideration the fiber component of it, which then became again, I guess what I'm proposing for the microbiome and your, microorganisms that help you convert this food into energy. But fiber then was used as a negative. Yeah. So whatever number fiber you had, you could take it away from the carb, which again helped, in essence, I want to say help you count if you're counting calories. It made it more realistic, or at least it kind of, again, gave a sense of more individualism. But then, again, I hate to bring this up, because we're, food industry business owners. When we applied for the nutritional information for our sauces, if you have less than 5 grams of
5 calories, you can list it as 0.
The rounding
down.
Yeah. So I guess maybe that's what I'm looking for in a new system is how do we round better the ineffectiveness or effectiveness that your body converts calories into energy that's usable and or storable. And I think that's the other part of it. Why does your body decide to store more than use?
Right.
Where does that trigger in your brain go, I don't need any more just because I can't get up? And then it made me think of another ADHD moment, talking about all this fiber. One of my favorite fiber stories is that idiot on Alone when he was starving.
Yeah.
and he discovered tree cambium, which is the inner bark of a tree. But in essence, he was eating a tree.
Type, yeah, the cellulose.
And so here's, and what happened to him, it truly, I want to say, amplifies my point, is that all that fiber that went in him, the energy that it took to break it down,
right,
on top of it being fibrous
and blocked,
so
he was at a deficit.
He was truly starving after eating this.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That was funny.
The sudden influx of pure fiber. Yeah.
This is great.
Well, again, so your body, is reacting to the fact that you've gotten energy, but in the fiber's case, it takes more, but hell, in my case, I'd probably gain 10 pounds by eating a tree bark, but have the greatest poops ever, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Flawless. Anyway, we're going to, but the next part of this, and we'll save it for the next episode, is that component of the storing of glycogen once it's in your body,
how the body handles
it. And how to deal with that, because again, not that we can solve the whole weight issue, but it's complicated, and the fact that we've only had, we're basing our information on data that's quite old. Not to say that it's not great,
right?
But version 1 of anything just
right
isn't the thing we want. So we're going to look at that, and then we are going to, either as a new series, but we talked about this last episode, the goofy government projects that that got funded for billions of dollars, and there's nothing to show for it. And there was one that you were just researching,
about getting to the Earth's,
what was it called?
Mantle, the moho.
Yeah. Which just sounds fun. It looked good on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
I worked on Project Moho.
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
It's an abbreviation, MOHO, but I don't have the...
No FOMO, Momo, Homo, Lomo in my backyard. Anyway, so...
And YOLO.
Yes, and... and what's the one that I didn't know? If you know, you know?
Yeah.
What are those letters? I see, I'd have to think about it.
I'd have to write it down. Okay. I'm not a... Yeah.
Smiley face. I'll appreciate the...
Thanks.
Appreciate your research, and until next time, this is Jim.
I'm Diane.
And this has been another episode of The Works.